Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. This hour, Detroit's Chinatown is slowly making its presence known and felt again in the city. This weekend is the second annual Chinatown Block Party. We'll learn more about the history of the area and goals for the future of the neighborhood. Then we'll learn a little bit more about Michigan's arts funding, but we begin with the National Endowment for the Arts. Arts funding has been on and off the chopping block a lot lately. At the same time, art and culture organizations are facing financial and political pressure from the Trump administration. Right now, House lawmakers are in the second day of back-to-back hearings grilling Smithsonian leadership over the content and framing of its museums and exhibitions. Meanwhile, funding for the National Endowment for the Arts held steady this year at $270 million. This comes after the administration threatened to eliminate the agency altogether. Mary Ann Carter is the chairman of the National Endowment of the Arts. It's the second time she's been in the role, both serving under President Donald Trump. Carter was in Michigan as part of an America 250 tour. I spoke with her while she was in Detroit for the Concert of Colors, and I started by asking her if the country's 250th changed how she views the NEA's mission.
Well, it doesn't actually change the mission at all. Celebrating the 250th anniversary has been a great celebration, not just for the country, but specifically for the National Endowment for the Arts, because we know the arts have always played a crucial role in the nation's history, whether it was during joyous times or sad times. The arts have always pulled Americans together, united Americans. And the arts were used for so many different movements. In 2020, during the centennial of the women's right to vote, the women's suffrage movement, we actually put a book together showcasing how the arts helped influence public opinion, whether it was through fashion or even postcards or editorial cartoons. The arts played such a huge role in all the movements that have happened, such as the Civil Rights Movement. When we were trying to get world support for World War II, we sent jazz out into the world. And so the arts have always been crucial to America in whatever form and for whatever reason. So being able to celebrate the 60th and this year the 61st anniversary of the Arts Agency, along with the 250th anniversary of the nation, has been just a fun experience for all of us.
Now, Mary Ann, beyond what's happening here at Concert of Colors, what other kinds of programs does the NEA support that speak to what American culture has actually looked like over the past 250 of years? I love how you brought in, the women's right to vote, civil rights, World War II, and jazz.
Well, one of the things that I've talked about before is when you go back to jazz, which is a pure American form, when greats like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, they became international stars, and that showed that America could compete in the art world on the international stage. And I like to remind people about that. And when people think of ballet, they think of France, and then obviously, of course, Russian ballet. That all came to America, and then Americans made it their own. And so, America has put their touch on every single art form, no matter what it is. But we've also given so much art to the world. I remember when I was young, I traveled a lot through Europe, and I traveled to places where they didn't speak English. But at clubs and the like, they would play American pop songs, and the people knew the words to every single word. And I was like, wow, they don't speak English, but they know our music. They know our art. And I believe art, it doesn't just unite Americans. It unites the world. And everyone is proud of the culture of their heritage. And so I try to talk about art and utilize art as a cultural diplomacy as well. again, not just within the U.S., but throughout the world. And I think you saw at the World Cup, we actually provided grants specifically to the 11 cities that were hosting FIFA games. And the coverage of the cultural events we did and the participation, not just from Americans, but from the people around the world who were visiting, was so exciting to see and so unifying. And so I just love to see the past 250 years and hopefully the next 250 years, the arts being utilized to always bring people together, no matter who they are or where they're from.
Now, for someone who's never engaged with a federal arts grant or program, why does an agency like the NEA matter to a city like Detroit specifically as we mark this anniversary?
Well, one thing that I talk about a lot too is that every American should have access to arts programming. And Detroit has always been such a great city for the arts. We actually did a city council meeting here during my first tenure at the National Endowment for the Arts. And obviously with Motown, art, music has always been a big part of the Detroit scene. So what we do at the Arts Endowment is we recognize artistic merit. We recognize the nonprofits who are trying to make sure that arts programming is provided in every corner of their communities. And so take that and cover it across the country. We know that almost a fourth of the country is not covered by any kind of private dollars for arts programming. And so between our direct grants at the National Endowment for the Arts and our state partnerships with all the states, so here in Michigan, it would be the Michigan Arts Council, that money now gets to flow to parts of the state that might never see arts programming. Think of the Upper Peninsula, think of the rural areas. And we just always want to make sure that regardless of your proximity or your proximity to, no matter your geography or your proximity to philanthropy, you will always have access to the arts and arts programming.
I love that you brought that up as well. Folks who are in the city of Detroit and around Metro Detroit, we often forget how much rural land there is around us, especially up north. But you're in town, you're visiting, you're chatting with different folks. What's one message that you hope to get across to those in the arts and culture community in Michigan as well as Metro Detroit?
There were so many murals painted on all the buildings, and it gives the city a new vibe. That was one of the things I noticed the last time I was in Detroit, how many buildings had murals painted on them. And so it's so absolutely amazing. But there are several messages, but I think one of the main messages is what I said previously: where you live and your proximity to philanthropy dollars should have no bearing on whether you have access to the arts. All Americans should have access to arts programming. And it's not just, I'm not talking about taking an 8th grade art class. I am talking about putting arts in our healing process. Doctors are beginning to prescribe arts as part of their clinical treatment plan. That's really important. We see neurologists studying how dancing can affect patients with Parkinson's and dementia and how it helps them heal and be able to do things. A woman yesterday was telling me about her father had a stroke and he can no longer speak, but he can sing. And so there's all these wonderful things going on, and everyone needs to be able to take advantage of them. We also we have therapeutic arts for wounded military men and women in uniform. And we started that when I was at the agency before, but we've now expanded it to community grants so veterans and their caregivers and their families can also benefit from some of that art therapy. So the arts is expanding into so many new and different fields. We were recently in Asheville, North Carolina, where we provided funding for disaster recovery after Hurricane Helene devastated so many of those mountain towns where the main streets really depend on their artists to sell their wares in the general stores. And so, the arts is not just about walking into a museum or drawing a picture in your 8th grade art class. The arts are a constant and an everyday part of life, whether it's in healing or education or disaster recovery. And I would want everyone to walk away with that message that arts are a necessity in our everyday lives. They're not a luxury. They are literally a necessity.
Marianne, I love that, and I'm happy that you touched on that because I was really interested in the work you've done with veterans and making sure that arts are a part of the therapies and different remedies for veterans. And that was just something really huge that a lot of folks, I think, we don't think about often at all, about the power of the arts, whether it's music or visual arts or even spoken word, whatever it may be, on our health. Are there any 250th anniversary programs, exhibits, or events that the NEA has planned this year nationally or even in Michigan?
Yes, we actually have some type of funding, whether it's through our state partnerships or direct grants or some of our cooperative agreements. We actually are funding more than 1,400 projects nationwide. And we actually have a whole list of Michigan events. I just don't have it in front of me. But in every state across the nation, we have specific America 250 programs. And I'll give you a couple examples. So we did just complete 16 days of arts programming on the Legacy stage at the Great American State Fair that was along the National Mall. I'm up here right now for the Concerts of Color. The Smithsonian Folklife Museum decided to work with the 38 different folklife festivals that go on around the country. Because their space on the National Mall was taken up just this summer by the big fair. And so we worked with them on the Concert of Colors. We provided some funding for that. And obviously it's a big celebration this year. It's their 35th anniversary. And, of course, one of the co-founders recently passed away, and so we had a nice tribute to him. There's also we are providing fundings to nonprofits that host military bands. Outside of the main D.C. area, there's 114 auxiliary military bands. And so, we wanted communities across the United States to be able to participate and hear military band music as well. So we funded at least 40 of those projects. And then with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, so every state has probably hundreds of mayors, we did a poster contest. So the mayors invited the public to create posters about their city or town's history, America's history, about the state, whatever they wanted to choose from. And then the mayors picked a winning poster. And the U.S. Conference of Mayors have been exhibiting those posters all around at all of their conferences and in different cities. And they're going to create a book of all 50 states for a different poster for each of the states. So a lot of fun America 250 projects. People were really excited to be able to celebrate this milestone. A few of us still remember the bicentennial. I hate to show my age, but I remember it. I was a child. And, we remember things that we did then, and, people still had mementos from that. And I hope people, for the 300th, they feel the same way and want to celebrate and say, I remember America 250 and we did this. So, yeah, we've just had a great fun year. A lot of projects will still continue. The period of performance goes till December 31st. So there'll still be some America 250 activities going on for the next couple months.
And outside of America 250 celebrations, is there a specific place or type of community you're most focused on reaching next? What's your next goal?
So, several goals, but as I mentioned earlier, arts and health is, I believe, becomes such an important topic. When we see doctors prescribing arts, again, in their clinical treatment plans, we see a lot of studying going on how the arts help with different aspects of healing, with different diseases or different issues. And so I think more research, more focus on that, making sure doctors and patients and researchers and art therapists are all included in the conversation so we can get a much larger holistic approach. And what excites me about this is it also provides opportunity for artists. The artists need new opportunities, and to me, this is the field that is opening up. And so if you can give artists opportunities and patients can be healing and, doctors are participating, that's a win-win everywhere for everyone. And disaster recovery, I think this is another big area for the arts. We have found, especially after hurricanes, that when we go in with HHS or FEMA or some of the other federal agencies, that the response to us is better and softer, and they relate to our agency, and the other agencies all saw that. We've actually been asked now to be a part of national disaster with all the other federal agencies. Up until my first tenure, we had never been a part of that. And I think that's really, really important because obviously you need everyone working together, but people need some solace. They need to be able to channel their anger or their fear somewhere else also. And that's an area where we provide a lot of comfort. So I think those two areas in particular, and obviously arts and education. My daughter is very dyslexic, and she had to learn differently. So she learned through the arts. All of her classes were taught either using visual arts or music, and she needed it to be successful. But I always imagined, what if every child had the opportunity to learn creatively like that? I think it would change the world. So those are sort of my areas of focus, my priorities, and where I put a lot of time.
And what do you want listeners to know about your visit to Michigan?
Well, I loved being in Michigan. The National Endowment for the Arts has provided Michigan with $21 million over the last 5 years. And, we love coming back here. There's always such an energy and such a dynamic. And, we're very proud of so many of the entities here in Michigan. And we just love the relationship we have. And so, Tia, thank you for this opportunity to talk to your listeners. And just know that, we love Michigan and we're so happy to be here.
That was Mary Ann Carter, chairman for the National Endowment of the Arts. We'll hear more about art funding in Michigan later on the show. This is The Metro, and as you're listening, you can also help shape the future of WDET. Our annual listeners survey is open right now. It's quick and it's anonymous. Let your voice be heard. We're community powered here at WDET, and the listener survey is just one way to let us know about the station's programming. Take the survey today at WDET.org/survey. That's WDET.org/survey. Now, coming up, did you know Detroit had not one, but two Chinatowns? We'll hear how Detroit's Chinatown story begins. That's next on The Metro.